But I think as a result of it, when I started to experience different benefits or even kind of receive opportunities that I wasn't or wouldn't have got otherwise, either people just knowing who I was, or even kind of opportunities for research collaborations or consultancy, kind of various things that started to happen. Oh, I had no idea that this could all happen because of just growing a YouTube channel.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for being with us with the group of Science in the Break. Yeah, like I mentioned, we are about to start a series of video where we want to understand more how the social media can be used for early career researchers.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I think it sounds like a really interesting topic. I think, yeah, compared to most of the things I talk about or the work I've been doing all day up to this point, the chance to talk about this type of thing is really interesting. Yeah, it's something I really enjoy. But yeah, I think, like you say, there's a lot of potential with social media and academia, and something kind of I'm also trying to promote a bit. So hopefully we can have an interesting conversation.
First of all, I want to understand with you if YouTube can be a right platform in academics. What do you think about it? Because maybe I'm too naive, but I don't think it's well exploited in academic. There are big channels, they speak about science, but it's not academic related. So yeah, I'm just curious to understand about your idea, if it's really neglected by academics or not, or is growing maybe.
Yeah, I think firstly I agree with you, but I think because I agree with you, I think that's almost one reason why it potentially can be a very good platform to use. With a lot of platforms that kind of academics use, social media wise, you know, there's a lot of noise, or there are so many people trying to communicate things that it's very difficult to be heard, or it's very easy to get kind of lost within a sea of lots of different voices. With YouTube, I think, yeah, because there is a lot less, I'll call it competition, but a lot less kind of people out there promoting their science, I think there's a lot more kind of space to stand out. But I'd also agree, I think before I started using it, it wasn't something I'd ever considered. Like I'd always been active on Twitter, just kind of as my personal account, but I'd never really seen YouTube as anything for a work perspective. But I think I almost kind of stumbled into it by accident, where I ended up kind of during lockdown and coronavirus, I ended up hosting a lecture series, which I ended up putting the lectures on YouTube. And I think through that and trying to make that a success, I ended up learning quite a lot that I wasn't aware of. And I think even kind of if I were to do that again, there are lots of things where I maybe would have capitalized on it more because I'm aware of kind of the opportunities and how things can be done. But I think I was very naive in that I kind of just thought, well, I'm doing these lectures, I'll put them on YouTube so that people can watch them afterwards. But I think as a result of it, when I started to experience different benefits or even kind of receive opportunities that I wasn't or wouldn't have got otherwise, either people just knowing who I was, or even kind of opportunities for research collaborations or consultancy, kind of various things that started to happen. I thought, oh, I had no idea that this could all happen because of just growing a YouTube channel. And even like recently, I was going through and updating my CV, and just as kind of mainly for my own kind of interest, I basically went through and color coded kind of what things on my CV do I think would exist if it wasn't for social media, and kind of what things do I think are either definitely social media or maybe somewhere in between. And it was really surprising to think about, even if it's not directly, how many things indirectly had been a result of social media, where it's, well, I did that video, which then led to a conversation with somebody, which then led to that research collaboration, or because of that video, that thing happened, and then I'm not confident that we would have got that funding if it wasn't for that thing that happened as a result. Or kind of a lot of it's indirect, but yeah, it's been really beneficial for me. And I think because there is a big open gap, I guess, at the moment. It is hopefully something that lots of people can use and use to their advantage, and hopefully to the advantage of the scientific field that they're in.
Yeah, the first thing is definitely thinking about, you mentioned about new opportunities, and that one is one of the topic that, I mean, one of the points that I have in mind related also with new researchers, because indeed that one, it can be beneficial for the community, but for the researcher in itself to be more known, to maybe approach other researchers. Then I don't know, is a question also about how can you really exploit YouTube, because in your case, maybe it's more straightforward to publish lectures, but I was thinking, yeah, for new researchers, maybe they want to publish their, yeah, for example, they have a new publication and they want to chat about the new publication, and but yeah, I think that one, so it is a point of reflection, because on Twitter you can make this thread, speak about your new publication and attract attention. In YouTube is more complicated. You need to spend more time, and then the thing is really worth.
I think something that's really key maybe to understand for people, I think, is that it doesn't have to be your own research. And I think the other thing I want to get across, as well as kind of it doesn't have to just be your research, is that if you can tie it in with things that you're doing anyway, then you can minimize how much extra time it takes, but you can also maximize the benefit of those things that you're doing anyway. So just to kind of explain what I mean by those things, I think when I say it doesn't have to be your research, you know, it could be like someone could do a short 2-minute summary of a paper that they've read. Imagine kind of whatever discipline you're in. I'm sure you could have a YouTube channel that does 2 or 3 minute summaries of different papers, and you could do one paper every week or one paper every month, and that kind of forces you to actually read those papers. Could be a tutorial, so if you're learning to do something, then record a short tutorial showing others how to do it, or even kind of teaching. I generally have this kind of principle that if I have to explain something to one person, fine, but the moment I have like the exact same call or the exact same kind of session with a second person, I then think, actually, maybe I should put this online, because it will benefit more people as well as myself, but it will also save me time in the future, because if I'm going to have to spend 5 or 10 minutes showing someone every few months, I may as well just record it and make it available. And I think as well, you know, it could be conference presentations. Yes, kind of discuss with the conference and, you know, make sure you're not kind of breaking any copyright or anything. But I've got various like keynote lectures or kind of short 10-15 minute conference presentations I've done, where I've waited a month or so after the conference and then uploaded a very similar presentation to YouTube. And I mean, it's not the biggest in the series, but one of my lectures as part of the Sports Biomechanics lecture series has, I think from memory, been viewed about 15 or 16,000 times. And I've never done a conference presentation with anywhere near that many people. If I did that in a conference, there'd be kind of 20 people in the room, of which some of them might be interested. Whereas by putting it on YouTube, YouTube kind of works its magic and finds the people who are interested in it. And suddenly it's like, wow, I've never spoken and talked about my research to that many people before. And even when you mention a Twitter thread, you can link to the video within that thread and do both anyway. It's not one or the other. But the only other thing I'd mention is that sometimes you need a platform first. So if you've got 0 subscribers on YouTube, 0 videos, it's a brand new channel, there's not that many people are going to see your video about your kind of research unless kind of you get everything right and it starts to appear at the top of searches and things. Whereas if you're doing other things that aren't your research, when you do then publish a paper, you've got that audience there ready. So if you think of that example I said earlier, where you might record a 2 or 3 minute summary of papers, if you're doing that every week or every month, one of those eventually might be your own paper. and you've already got an audience of people who are watching the video every week. And then when it happens to be your paper, great.
Indeed, YouTube can be a kind of rehearsal before going to presentation, because we know, yeah, maybe for you it was less stressful. For me, also in another language the first time was pretty complicated, and yeah, I didn't have at that time YouTube or anything to practice. And then if you do this kind of activity, then it will be easier to speak publicly. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. The only thing I'd not disagree with, but I think the thing I'd say to be careful with is I would, if I'm doubling up, I would always try and do the actual conference first, so that I'm not I wouldn't want to turn up to a face-to-face conference or an online one and kind of present a video that people had already seen. But I think I would try and do it the other way around, where I would do the conference presentation and no one had ever seen it before, but then put it on YouTube after, if I was allowed. But I think you still make a good point about learning from it and getting practice, because I think what I would do, or what I do is use, say if I do the conference presentation, then afterwards, after a month or so, upload something similar or a small section of that to YouTube. I would then use that and my feedback from that to help me with my next conference presentation. So I think a couple of, again, this is something I wasn't aware of until I actually did it and it happened, but the analytics that YouTube gives you are amazing. And I think without realizing that would be a benefit, it's helped my kind of presentation skills, or hopefully my teaching and lecturing skills, quite a lot. Because even things like seeing how to engage an audience, how to hook people in, how to keep people engaged throughout a whole video, or even things around how to make a title that's informative that people want to click on, or things around how to get your video to the top of a search. And if you do I'm making up an example, but if you did a video on, I don't know, a certain aspect or biomechanics of a particular sport, then how do you get it so that if somebody types that sport and biomechanics or science into YouTube, your video comes up at the top? And some things like that can be beneficial for actually writing how do you make the title or the abstract or keywords for a paper. Something I've read a few people talking about that's quite key is the idea of building in public. So not necessarily, people say building a new project or a new endeavor, whatever it is, but not, for us, it would be a research project, but it's not doing everything in silence and then getting to the end and going, oh, here's my paper. It's actually, if you can share that journey and engage people in, the different stages of the research process, it could be with participant permission, there could be a video of you collecting data and talking through it. When you're analysing the data, you could record a short tutorial video showing people how to analyse similar data. Or you could, when you're doing your literature review, like we said earlier, you could record some videos summarising the literature on that topic. And I think if you then do that all the way through, by the time you get to the end and you want to present your paper, it's kind of, you've kind of learned things on the journey and other people have become more engaged in it. But just to kind of jump back again on that idea of learning things, the other thing I've learned is around the importance of like the opening bit and the ending bit of a video. So I think people, the number of, again, on those kind of graphs, the number of people that watch about 5 seconds of a video and then leave is massive. And I've realized kind of academic presentations, we normally start and the first couple of minutes are really boring, and kind of I include my own presentations in that, but we'll start and we'll introduce ourselves, we'll put up, people put up an image of their lab or their university and they start talking about their background a bit. And I think the thing I've realized is just make sure the first 10 or 20 seconds are really, really engaging and try and hook people's attention. And then if you have to go back to the other stuff and introduce yourself after a few minutes, then you can. And I think similar at the end, often at the end of a video or at the end of a presentation, we'll start really obviously winding it down and having like summary slides and then going, oh, I'd like to thank these people and these people and these people. Oh, and here are some references and and it kind of, the start and the end of most presentations are really boring. And again, I've seen people click off and go to watch something else or do something else, and they never actually get to that bit because they get the idea, oh, it looks like it's ending, I'll finish. And I've kind of learned quite a bit around that. You know, if you go on YouTube and then click on the video you want to watch, like, well, why did I click that video and not any of the others? What was it about it? And if you watch really big kind of entertaining videos, start to think, well, what did they do in the first minute or so that hooked me in? And I know I'm slightly become obsessed with it, but I've started to notice I'll be watching a TV series on Netflix, and then within the first minute of episode 1 of season 1, I go, oh, like I see what they've done there. Suddenly I'm really hooked and I really want to see the rest of it. And you can kind of learn, you know, you can learn what from other people in kind of outside of academia. I think you can learn a lot more than necessarily from just other academic presentations. If I do a video that not as many people have seen, if one person contacts me and says, oh, that's exactly the skill set we're looking for, do you want to collaborate on a research project? Or if somebody, you know, who works in sport contacts me and says, would you be able to talk to us about how we can apply this within kind of our team or with our athletes? Then I think that's much more important than the Mendeley video that gets thousands of views but doesn't benefit me in any way. Kind of, it's good to help people, but it's kind of, now when I'm thinking about, that's the only benefit of that video really, is that, oh, it's helped some people out, and I get some nice comments where people say thank you and that they found it useful. But yeah, I think it's just thinking, again, like you said, strategically and linking things up and going, actually, it's not how many views or how many likes or whatever else on social media. It's and I think it's easy to focus on those things. I think I have to keep reminding myself that actually, what is my kind of metric, or what is the thing that, why am I doing this? And can I monitor that thing instead of, you know, getting, so if it's Twitter, for example, likes and retweets don't mean anything. It's what am I trying to achieve? And if it's sharing a paper, you know, are you trying to start a conversation about your research? Are you trying to, you know, is someone just interested in kind of increasing future citations, or kind of what is that person trying to achieve? And if there's a way of measuring it, that's the thing, like you say, that you need to be interested in, and not the kind of more superficial monopoly money kind of, you know, views, likes, retweets or whatever, because in reality, those things don't actually mean anything. Something I've just done for the first time actually is kind of, I've just published an article within the BASES magazine, so the magazine for the British Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences. But within that, I had a figure, and then within the figure, I had a QR code to a YouTube video for more information. So it basically says within the figure, kind of the figure caption says, you know, whatever the normal figure caption would be. And then at the end of it says something like, scan the QR code for a full lecture video on this topic. And kind of, that's literally kind of, as we're talking at least, I think come out in the last day or so. So I'm yet to see how it works. But I think once that magazine goes out to members, I'm quite interested to see whether that video does get people viewing it or how that works. And I think if it does work quite well, that might be something people could do maybe within journal articles. It might not necessarily be, you'd have to work with the journal. You wouldn't necessarily be able to just kind of, I guess, push them onto other things that you wanted them on. But if it's related, I'm sure it could be done.
Thanks a lot, Stuart. I think you gave a lot of very useful suggestions, first of all for me and for all the audience, I hope. Yeah, thanks for your time. And like you said, at the end we lose the concentration and lose viewers. Thanks a lot for being our guest.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, hopefully other people did, but I enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you for having me.